Hey friends, it's David, and I'm counting down my 13 favorite games for spooky season. It's October, and if you're looking for a frightfully fun game to play, I've got a list of games that I recommend to you. Please note that many of these games I received for free courtesy of the publisher. I do have an Amazon affiliate link. If any of these interest you, you can get for yourself, but I'm not trying to make you buy anything. These are the games that I've had in my collection, some of them for many years, that I authentically enjoy, and I wholeheartedly recommend to anybody to try out. So if you're looking for a fun game to try out, maybe you'll find one on this list. Coming in at number 13 on my list is Horrified from Prospero Hall. In Horrified, you're going to be rescuing villagers and trying to defeat monsters. We've got Frankenstein's bride, the creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein himself, Dracula. It's a blast. It's a cooperative game that doesn't take super long. And I received this a few years ago from Ravensburger. And this used to be number 5 on my list when I did one of these lists a couple years back. It fell for me, not necessarily because of the game. I just had a really bad experience with Ravensburger. They sent me a ton of games, and then when I tried to mark in Instagram that they gave me the game, you have to mark for FTC compliance if it's a sponsored post. Even if there's no money involved, if you receive a product for free, you have to disclose that. They literally threatened me, not with one, but 2 different law firms to try to say that they don't have a material connection with me. I'm like, what are you talking about? You sent me all these games. So, and then they blocked me on Instagram and Facebook, and are trying to lie about me and have threatened me. So that was a nightmare of an experience. Yet despite that, this is still one of my favorite games. I wholeheartedly recommend this game. And I'm not gonna let a bad experience with a company stop me from recommending a product, even though I probably should not even bother. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I believe in being true to my audience. And if I'm making a list of top games about spooky season, Horrified is very accessible with a cheap price point and can be taught to young kids or people that aren't really gamers. It's easy for them to pick up the rules to this. And you guys are going to have a blast with this one. So that's why it's on my list. I do wholeheartedly recommend this. Horrified. The Universal Monsters. I think they have a couple newer ones, but I haven't tried those ones yet. But I do like this one. Number 13, Horrified. Coming in at number 12 on my list for games for spooky season is Eschaton from Archon Games. This is a deck builder where you are in control of a cult and you're battling for territory. The theme, you're leading a cult and deck builder. I have a soft spot for those personally. I haven't played this a lot during like the spring and summer, but when it gets to this time of year, I always try to get this one off the shelf and play it a few times. I haven't really seen many people talking about this one, to be quite honest. I think it's flown a little bit under the radar and might be a bit of a hidden gem. I got this either 2 or 3 years ago at PAX East, and I cannot recommend this one enough if you like this genre. So a lot of people aren't into deck builders, and I do believe there are many better deck builders than this one. However, for the spooky genre, I really do enjoy this one. Like it's also territory control, so you're deck building and amassing troops and trying to take over the land before you're struggling to favor of the dark one. And yeah, you're just, so if you like old school games like Risk, it's like if you think about Risk meets deck building, so you're getting your troops based off of your deck building, but then you're having to make those decisions of where we're going to invade, who we're going to fight, etc. So I feel this serves an interesting niche of, you could teach this to someone that isn't into board games at all. In fact, most of these games on this list are friendly to people that aren't heavy into the genre. So I like that this is I want to say, definitely not heavy. It's medium, but it's on the lighter medium side. Once you explain how the deck building works, if they've ever played Risk, then they're gonna understand how Eschaton is. And yeah, so spooky season, you're leading a cult, deck building, trying to take over the land. I recommend Eschaton from Archon Games. Number 11 on my list of best games for Halloween is Maximum Apocalypse. In Maximum Apocalypse, you're going to be trying to survive an alien apocalypse, or a zombie apocalypse, or a bug apocalypse, or a robot apocalypse. I like this cooperative strategy game. There's a whole book of different scenarios to go through. There's a plethora of content, which I haven't even gotten through half of, to be quite honest. I've replayed a few of the same campaigns several times because I lost. There's so much to this. And this is the original Apocalypse Edition, Legendary Edition or whatever. I think they did a reprinting of this game, and it comes in different formats. You can get the core set, and then you can get the expansions separately, so you don't have to get it all at once. This is everything from the first edition content. This was provided to me by Rock Manor Games at PAX East earlier this year, and I've been playing it every single month. If you've been following me for a while, you've seen that I put this game on my top played games of the month several times now this year. I really do enjoy it. The setup takes a little bit because you have to find the specific cards and the specific tiles to the campaign you're doing. But if you don't mind spending 15-20 minutes to get that all prepped, it's not a big deal. And honestly, a lot of games these days will take 10 to 20 minutes to set up. Especially, this is coming in midweight. It's not overly complex. The most complex thing is setting up the game, not necessarily the rules themselves. The rules are pretty straightforward, but the theme, post-apocalyptic, really enjoy that. Actually, I was re-watching Station 11 and then also The Last of Us on HBO. And I'm like, yeah, I want to get out Maximum Apocalypse and let's play a couple games. Let's go through a zombie apocalypse again. And a lot of people have tired on zombies. However, there's so many other options in this one, like bugs, robots, aliens, all that. And I think that if you're looking for a post-apocalyptic game, this is one that you're going to want to at least check out, read more about online, see other people's reviews, and it might be something that catches your eye. So Maximum Apocalypse, number 11 on my top 13 games for spooky season from Rock Manor Games. Check it out. Number 10 on my list of the 13 best games for spooky season is Betrayal. I have the Legacy Edition, but there's several different versions of Betrayal. There's the normal one, and then I think they did a Baldur's Gate one. I think that there's a lot of problems with this game. However, when it comes to, and the problems are some of the haunts don't exactly work the way you want them to. But let me back up. You're going to be tiling, entering rooms, building out a mansion, building out a haunted house. And then once someone goes insane, you check the tile that they're in, and you look through a book, and then depending on where they are, that's the haunt or scenario that you're going to use to determine what actually happens in this game. It's semi-cooperative, so everyone's trying to gather items and prepare themselves for what ultimately happens. And then a lot of scenarios are things that happen in classic movies. And so you might have to kill someone, you might just have to reach a certain location. There's all these different objectives, and that scenario for objective is triggered once a certain condition is met. So what I really like about this game is spooky season, that theme, you're in a haunted house. You never know what scenario you're gonna get because it's randomly triggered. This is the legacy version, and in the legacy version, you're playing through a campaign of families. So someone in your family might die, but then they bestow qualities or characteristics to a weapon. So then that weapon or whatever in your family gets more interesting in later games. Also, like, you know, legacy, you're making an impact on the pieces of the game for what happens in future games. You're unlocking new content. So I have really enjoyed the legacy version of Betrayal. However, this is the normal Betrayal. You can find really inexpensively online. And I do really recommend playing Betrayal at least a few times, even if it doesn't end up being something you keep in your own collection. Usually it's in someone's collection in a game group, and if nobody in your game group has it, it's definitely something I recommend you try a few times. Yeah, it's easy to find. You can get it at mass market places or online, and it's been around forever. And I feel like the best thing about this game is that it shines in larger play groups, and that you turn down the lights a little, have some spooky music. You're really setting the atmosphere. So if like you're looking for a game to play during Halloween or spooky season, when it comes to theming, this is probably one of the best themed games. It's not one of my favorite, but it's one of the best themed games, and that's why it's on my list, and that's why it comes in at number 10 on my top 13 games for Halloween is Betrayal from Avalon Hill Wizards of the Coast. Coming in at number 9 on my list of the top 13 games for spooky season is Mythic Mishcief from Ivy Games. Mythic Mishcief is an abstract strategy game. However, the factions are really what's making this hit the theme for spooky season. So we've got vampires and wizards and monsters and zombies and witches and ghosts, trolls. They had a Kickstarter for a second volume that had even more factions. However, there is enough content in just the original that's going to keep you going for a long time, I feel. Everyone games a little differently. For me, I'll play a game only a few times a month at most. This, because there's 8 asymmetric factions, I haven't even played all of them in the past year. I want to say I played maybe 6 of them, because like when you're playing an asymmetrical faction, you might need to play that faction a few times to really get the handle of it and become like more of an expert on how it works. So I haven't become a master at this game by far at all. There's a lot of different content in this to explore, and I think the new expansions, there's even, I don't know if it's 6 or 8 more asymmetrical factions, and then a new way to play as well. So there's a wealth of content for this one if it's something you end up enjoying. But for me right now, just this base game is more than enough content. You can play 1 to 4 players. However, most of the time it's gonna be 1-on-1. And then like it says 1 to 4, but really like you would be doing 2 1-on-1 games maybe, and then have the winners of that play against each other. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for an abstract game that has a little bit of a spooky theme, then Mythic Mishcief might be your bet. So if you love abstracts, check this one out, Mythic Mishcief, Ivy Games. Number 8 on my list of top 13 games for spooky season is Whirling Witchcraft from AEG, Alderac Entertainment Group. In Whirling Witchcraft, you're going to be taking recipes, transforming ingredients, and passing your cauldron along. It's very simple, straightforward, really light game. It's going to take around half an hour, 2 to 5 players. If the idea of building a cauldron of ingredients sounds interesting to you, then this one has you covered. Very light, accessible. You can teach this thing to anybody. And that's why it comes down on number 8 on my list, is because the accessibility, and it's inexpensive. It's not a heavy, complicated, expensive game. It's very cheap, easy to pick up in comparison to other games that, you know, people might have in this hobby. So if you like the theme of witches and brewing stuff, and it's got a little cute cauldrons that have a nice little table presence, then Whirling Witchcraft will have you covered in that. Number 8 on my list of top 13 games for spooky season from AEG, Whirling Witchcraft. Coming in at number 7 on my list of best games for spooky season is Sorcerer from Wise Wizard Games. I received this at PAX East earlier this year, and this has been a slow burn for me. I've really been enjoying it. It's a little complex to teach, so it's not going to be picked up off my shelf every single time someone comes over. This is definitely a medium complexity game, and it's that you're definitely what I'd say is this holds a spot where once I've taught someone some basic elements of modern board games, then I'm reaching for this one because it has the more complexity. So we're going to begin the game by starting off with taking a character, and we're taking like a skills deck, and then like a location, and we mash them together, and then we have our character. And every turn we're going to be playing down minions to one of 3 locations, going back and forth, fighting over control of Victorian London. The dark theme of this one is what makes it hit the spooky list. And I haven't been playing it a ton because it has the complexity. There's only a couple people that have been playing it with me. But I think it's definitely worth that barrier to entry, learning the rules. Of all the games on this list, this is the most complex one, but I really enjoy it. A lot of the other games on this list are lightweight or midweight. This is definitely midweight, and I think this one's the hardest of all the games on this list to teach. But if you like back and forth one-on-one games, I think you're really going to enjoy Sorcerer. You can play it at a higher player count. I have not. I've only played it one-on-one, and for me, that's where this game shines. Also, there are expansions. I have not tried any of the expansion content. Been having a lot of fun with the base game. I've only been playing it a couple times a month, and each time I play it maybe like 2 to 4 times. So I don't think I'll need expansions for another few months, because I haven't like discovered everything there is yet within the base game. I don't feel the need to get more content for it, not yet. Maybe in a few months down the road I'll want that. And they have a lot of expansions for this game. They're like more character packs basically, or more trait decks, what I saw. And I think they had a Kickstarter for a bigger box expansion to this. But I've been having a lot of fun just with this core box of Sorcerer from Wise Wizard Games. The dark theme is what makes it on this list for spooky season. If you haven't heard about this one, I think it's definitely worth your time to check out. Sorcerer from Wise Wizard Games. Number 6 on my list of the top 13 games for spooky season is Vampire the Masquerade Rivals. Now, this is a deck building game. However, you don't need to do deck building. The core box comes with 4 different factions, and they have a plethora of expansions. Each of those expansions adds a couple more factions to them. World of Darkness and Renegade Game Studios sent me the core box, and then 3 expansions of 2 factions each. Over the past few months. I got this around summertime. I've been just playing around with the base 4 factions. I finally started diving into some of that expansion content. However, I haven't done the deck building. I've just been keeping the decks as is. So in Vampire the Masquerade Rivals, this is going to shine at multiplayer 3 and 4 players. Some of the cards have voting mechanics on them. So one-on-one, they don't really, those cards aren't going to shine. And I guess that's where the deck building could come in, because you could alter the decks so that those cards that are better with multiple players come out and you can swap them for other cards for one-on-one. But I didn't want to just, at least not yet. I've been having a lot of fun with the pre-constructed decks that came out of the box, and then the pre-constructed decks from the first few expansions. And this is definitely something for me that is going to be seen play year-round, not just during spooky season. This is very casual. It can be competitive if you're doing one-on-one. I personally haven't played many games one-on-one with rivals, and that's because a lot of the cards do refer to, like making a choice. And this game is going to shine with multiple people because, like, you have 4 people at the table, one of them is your enemy. You want to knock that person out, but the other people at the table don't want that person to be knocked out. They might want to knock out you, or they might want the person to the left of you to be knocked out. And at the beginning of the game, you're going to randomize to know who's your rival. And yeah, it's leading a coterie of vampires. I've been having a lot of fun reading the Vampire the Masquerade TTRPG. So the clans correspond with the clans in the game. So getting that backstory. I haven't gotten the TTRPG to the table yet because I've been just slowly reading through all that, and then I have to assemble like a game group. However, the card game has been getting played for me, and I think this one, there is an overwhelming amount of expansions to this, believe it or not. And I think I was reading on their website that they have organized play. I personally have not tried to seek that out. For me, this has been an at-home casual game. So for me, the core box and then a couple expansions has been enough for like the foreseeable future. I don't feel like I'm going to have an itch to get more content for this game. However, if not in the anywhere near future. However, if this is something that you do end up falling in love with, there is a wealth of content already out, because it's been out for a couple years now. I don't know, I want to say maybe 10 expansions. I don't know, I didn't have the exact amount, but there's so many different clans and decks and cards. If you're into the deck building, you could have a lot of fun just doing the deck building without even playing. But for me, I didn't want to spend my time obsessing over deck building to optimize when I'm at home. I'm a casual player, and the pre-constructed decks, they're perfect for casual gameplay. I don't need to be death cut trying to annihilate the other player. The tournament competitive play overwhelms me personally for this. However, if you are a competitive player, that is something that is out there for you to go to tournaments. So I think that's really neat. And because it's the expandable card game model, there's no random booster packs. I think that's another positive selling point for people who enjoy this system, enjoy this game, is you're not throwing money in the garbage on random booster packs for cards you don't need. And you're not having to buy expensive singles. Like, as a Magic the Gathering player myself, that's one of the things I really hate about the game, is that collectible aspect. Vampire the Masquerade, it used to be, way back in the day, there was a similar game, Jihad, I think, or I might be having a brain fart. It used to be a CCG, but when Renegade Game Studios redid it a couple years ago, they made it as the expandable card game. So you know straight up what you're getting into. You know the contents of each expansion. It's a lot better for the consumer. Granted, you can spend a lot of money on this game going after all the expansions, but at least you know what you're getting. You're not spending hundreds of dollars on booster boxes. I want to say the expansions are very reasonably priced, like $25 to $30, I think. But even just the base game, the four factions in this, you're gonna have a lot of fun with. And then once you've played through those enough and you want more, there's a wealth of content to go through. And the theme, the dark, World of Darkness, vampires, it's spooky season. This definitely makes this list. Really enjoy this. If you like casual multiplayer games and spooky season and vampires, you're going to want to try Vampire the Masquerade Rivals. Number 6 on my list. Number 5 on my list of the top 13 games from spooky season is Massive Darkness 2 Hellscape. I know that there's a number 2 on this, but you don't need number 1. Massive Darkness 2 is its own game, completely different from Massive Darkness 1. Variable setup. You can choose any any scenario and just do a quick playthrough. There's a massive wealth of content for this, a ton of expansions. They also made a pack for you to be able to retroactively use the content from the first game in Massive Darkness 2 if you can track down expansions or the base game from Massive Darkness 1. So in Massive Darkness 2, you have variable player powers for each of the characters. There's... Why am I having a brain fart? There's lesser monsters you're going to be encountering when you open rooms, doors. There's roaming monsters. And then there's big boss battle fights. And if you like dungeon crawlers and you like miniatures, there's a lot of amazing miniatures in this. And you're going to be... It's not overly complicated. This is definitely a light to medium game. The rules are not super complex at all. So it's a very easy teach. And the theme is just hell and dark. You got demons, all that. I personally went out of my way. I bought this game then on the secondary market. I don't want to tell you how much money I spent on this. I used all my gift cards from Amazon to pick up all the expansions, and then I traded Magic the Gathering cards to get stuff from the first game. And I think I have every single expansion from the first game and every expansion from the sequel. I don't. Then they made like promo stuff. I don't have the promo stuff. I just have all of this. And there's so much. This is going to be like a forever game for me. It's never leaving my collection. I really enjoy it. And there's so much content to this that every time you play this, it's going to be different. This is probably one of my favorite games out of my whole collection. Massive Darkness 2 Hellscape. Cannot recommend this enough. Even without expansions, you're gonna have a lot of fun with this, just this core box. And then if you were to buy an expansion, I would tell you to pick up a character pack so that you have more variability in playing. But you don't need that. That's more like a want. A lot of content in this box, and they have more scenarios online. And if you track down expansions, this game will consume you. It's not overly complex. Break down a door, kill everything, right? But it's fun. And the theme is why it hits this list on top 13 games for spooky season. It's a dark theme, but it's cooperative, it's accessible, and it's fun. I really genuinely enjoy this one. I spent a lot of money tracking down expansions, trading for all the original stuff, and for me it's well worth it. I'm going to be playing this one for years to come, not going anywhere with it. Going to keep it forever. Massive Darkness 2. Number 4 on my list of the top 13 games for spooky season is Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu. So if you like Pandemic system, this is slotting over the Cthulhu theme. I know some people don't like Pandemic because we went through a real pandemic. Pandemic has been around forever. Cooperative game where you're flipping over a card and then places on the board are receiving threats. So in Reign of Cthulhu, there are going to be cultists that are going places trying to summon the evil one. And if you like the Cthulhu mythos, then Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu is a cooperative game that you're really going to enjoy. It's not super complex at all. There's no expansion content or anything like that. What you get in the box is what is, and it's great this time of year for spooky season. I've had this a few years now. Play it every year around this time. Love it. I don't play it a ton outside of this time of year because I really do go for the thematic stuff. But for spooky season, if you like pandemic games, if you like cooperative games, this one very accessible, very easy teach. You can teach this one to almost anybody, not overly complex. And that's part of what makes it on this list. That's why it's number 4, Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu from Z-Man Games. Number 3 on my list of the top 13 games for spooky season is Campy Creatures from Keymaster Games. This little box has a ton of fun in it. 2 to 5 players. I feel this one is super under the radar. Don't really see a lot of people talking about it. It's a hidden gem to me, and I really feel that more people should know about this one. And so you're a mad scientist and you have an army of creatures to do your bidding, and you're trying to capture immortals. So everyone has like the same cards, and it's like the way you play them to try to get the mortals. And there's a little bit of variable setup. They do have an expansion for this that adds more characters, more mortals, I believe. And just the theme, it's right there. Spooky season, Campy Creatures. You've got the blob, you've got the werewolf, you got vampires, you got all of the tropes, all of those creatures, right? The Campy Creatures. I don't know why I'm having a brain fart again, but like, this is the 2nd edition of the game. I never played the first one, but the 2nd edition of the game I recommend to everybody. It is not an overwhelming complex teach, but there is a little bit of depth of strategy because you need to think ahead about what cards you want to play, because every time you play a card, there's a special action on the card that affects the board. So for instance, the blob, you might discard a card in your hand to add the strength of that card to the blob, so the blob is bigger. But normally the blob has only a 0, and etc. So like, knowing when to play your card, and then really this shines at the higher 3, 4, 5 player count. You can play it one-on-one, and it's got some nice back and forth one-on-one. And there's going to be a lot of bluffing involved if you're playing it one-on-one. But if you're playing it at the 3, 4, 5, then you really, it just becomes a little wild. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. And that's where this game really shines. I think I have only ever actually played this at 4 players. I've never actually played it at 5 players, but some of my favorite games of this has been at 4 players. Maybe someday I'll be able to play at 5. Maybe if I'm at a convention or something and can convince a few other people to play this with me. Campy Creatures, really easy to teach. Little depth of strategy here. Everyone's got the same cards, but it's how you play them that affects what ultimately happens. Cannot recommend this enough. Small box, a lot of fun in it. Campy Creatures from Keymaster Games, my number 3 on my top 13 favorite games for spooky season. Number 2 on my list of top 13 games for spooky season is Zombicide. Now, some people might be like, that's a little pedestrian of you. Some people might be like, they're totally over it. This system has been around forever now. One of the very first crowdfunding games, or early on, I enjoy the Black Plague, the fantasy theme. Personally, myself, I have a dearth of content. Not all of it, but a ton. I've got up here. Got Wolfsburg, Green Horde, bonus, No Rest for the Wicked, Friends and Foes. Then I got like the Abomination, zombie bosses, and a couple character packs. I have a ton of content for Zombicide, and it doesn't get to the table as much as it used to these days, but I still play it maybe once a month, and it's a blast when it does get play. And there's so many different abominations, each with their own variable power that affect how the game progresses. And there's a lot of different scenarios to go through. And there's so many different heroes, each with their own abilities, so that every time you play, you can choose a different survivor, have a different abomination, and just try to survive the zombie apocalypse. I think of all the zombie games I played, this is still my favorite. I haven't played 100 zombie games. I played maybe about 40. That's still a fair amount of games with the zombie theme. And Zombicide is still my favorite out of all of them. Zombicide Black Plague, and then I have some expansions to it, and then Green Horde and some expansions. I just take all the abominations. What I do is I have a deck with one of each abomination in it, and then I have like the core abominations. So when I reveal an abomination in the deck that you make, when you're flipping over to see what the threat is, how many zombies spawn where, and then you hit the abomination, then I go to the abomination deck that I have and then shuffle it up, and we choose the random one, and then we grab from the box that random abomination with the variable, attributes. That's how I play this game, as random. So it's always a surprise. You don't know who's coming down, and it's just a blast. I love this game. Zombicide Black Plague for Guillotine Games and Cool Mini or Not. Highly recommend it. It's not super complex thinky at all, but it's fun. Bust down a door, kill everything you see. Dungeon crawling. Zombicide Black Plague. Number 2 on my list of best games for spooky season. And coming in at number 1 on my favorite game for spooky season is Mansions of Madness from Fantasy Flight Games. Mansions of Madness is an app-assisted game, so you're going to need an iPad, an iPhone, or a PC to help play this game. However, it's definitely worth doing that. There's a bunch of different scenarios in this base game, and then they have a whole bunch of expansions with more scenarios, more heroes, more monsters. It's a tile laying game. You're exploring the scenario revealing new areas, and even when you play the same scenario again, things are going to be in different places, so you can't always know what's going to happen, and it's just spooky and creepy and encapsulates everything you want from a Halloween themed game. I abhor the little black bases to some of the monsters. I think that's kind of ugly. I feel like maybe down the road they're probably going to make another edition, because this is the second edition. I feel like they're going to republish it and redo the character bases. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. And I'm not a miniature painter myself. I've tried, really have tried. A lot of these games have fantastic miniatures, and they're still all great. I've been slowly learning how to paint. Mansions of Madness, if when I get better at painting, I'm gonna paint all of these miniatures. This is the game that I of all these games, if you ask me what one game do you want to play on Halloween, I'm gonna tell you, let's play Mansions of Madness. The atmosphere, the creepy, spooky, vibrant. I love it. I love this game. I cannot recommend this enough. It is a little bit expensive, especially the expansions can be quite. It's not cheap. But I feel that just the base game, you have a wealth of content, and if you've never played an app-assisted game, this is definitely one that's worth trying out if a friend has it, or if you're at a board game cafe, or at, not exactly at a convention, because conventions are loud, but definitely if you Google up a board game cafe, or see if a friend has it, try it. I think if you try this, then you're going to want to buy it yourself. Mansions of Madness, 2nd edition, fantastic game for spooky season. Love it. So these are my top 13 games for spooky season. What are your 13 favorite games to play this Halloween? Let me know in the comments. Did I miss a game? What is something that you love that's not in here? Have you played all these? Which one do you like best? Let me know. If you enjoy this type of content, please subscribe, hit that follow button, share it, hit the retweet button. Thank you so much for spending all your time. If any of you want to pick up any of these games, they're available in my affiliate link down below. Check them out, no pressure. Just let me know. Have a good one. Thanks.